Hi. So as you probably know, FFMPEG v7.1 has been recently released by Absolute, as you can see here. If you didn't know, I've been an alpha tester for it for a while and helped him solve bugs and come up with new ideas and stuff. And I wanted to make the tutorial to show people how to use it. There's going to be two different tiers. There's going to be one for beginners, mainly to just bot easy stuff like extreme demons. And then there's the advanced section, which will help you bot impossible levels and top ILL levels. So before we get to botting, I want to talk about some specific things. First off, keybinds. You want to set some keybinds for specific things. The ones I have for are, I have a keybind for restart level, which is set to B, and in the frame stepper, I have a keybind of F set to go forward, and I have a keybind to turn frame stepper off and on. These are really helpful in order to reset fast, in order to attempt over and over again, and frame stepper is a massive help with almost all levels. Second off, I want to talk about the different accuracy modes. The accuracy modes basically tell MHR how it will store the macro file. Vanilla will only use frame and will click on release on the specific frames that you do in the practice run. Click physics will use physics changing in order to manipulate the game to have more accuracy on each click and release. And frame fixes will store every frame and the physics of that frame in order to get the highest accuracy possible. For this tutorial, I am only going to be using vanilla because click and frame fixes change the physics of the game and the impossible level list does not allow it. Although if you want high accuracy, you are allowed to use either. So the first level we are going to bot is Abyss of Darkness. Abyss of Darkness is the top 1 demon in the game, but don't worry, it is really easy to bot if you know how to. If you want to make it easier for yourself, use show hitboxes and show layout, as that will make the gameplay completely clear and you'll be able to do jumps and timings easier. Now we set our FPS. You can use the FPS bypass or TPS bypass. You can use the TPS bypass if you are having lag at higher refresh rates, but I'll just use FPS bypass for now. I'm going to use accuracy vanilla and click record and enter the level. Now when I'm in the level, I can quickly use the speed hack and change it to slower, so I can do these jumps much easier. Speed hack is another really great tool to use with MegHack replay, as it makes spotting so much easier as well. So you basically just want to go through the level as if you're doing a normal practice run. And you don't have to worry about where you place checkpoints because the practice fix is done really well. Practice fix has been updated to specifically fix more things that make botting much easier. So you don't have to worry about placing checkpoints while holding or placing checkpoints in specific places. It will account for that and fix it. By the way, I forgot to mention, every time I respawn, I am pressing my restart level key. I press it every time so I can respawn much quicker than going to a menu and restarting manually every time. Now, if you come across a timing like this, which is too hard for you to time easily, use frame advance. So I just pressed G, which activated frame stepper. Now I'm going to go F, press F, and keep going as close as I can. And then I click, and then unlock frame advance. So now I went through the gap. Frame advance can be used pretty much everywhere if you are having trouble with doing a specific timing. If this is too hard for you, you can use it here as well. One handy thing is that you can hold it down in order to move faster. Now you can go like this, activate again, go a little bit closer, and now release, and you're through. Also, if you ever feel like you're struggling with botting specific sections, you can always change your speed hack to be slower or use frame advance anytime. So right here, I feel like this is a bit too easy, so I'm going to increase the speed so I can bot it faster. One last thing before I finish. When you are botting, it is generally good courtesy to try and make your macros look as human as possible. So try not to spam in ship and make the ship go incredibly straight. Try to give some sort of leniency in order to make it look more human. Alright, so now when you are done finishing the level and you have made sure you have recorded, you just type in the level name or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call this 2 because I've already botted Abyss of Darkness. Now we can go here, turn show hitboxes and show layout off, and replay. Now a funny thing about replay bots is that you can use any speed hack you want. So I can set this to 2 times speed and it will play at 2 times speed perfectly. I won't do that for now, but that's just a funny thing to think about. Now you may notice while it's replaying or while it's recording that the game slows down quite a lot. That is simply a symptom of how bots work. I won't go into the details, but it requires slowdowns in order to make sure each frame is rendered and make sure macros are accurate. So if everything went well, this should beat the level. Yeah, as you can see, there's quite a lot of slowdown here because this part is quite laggy and it needs to slow down in order to make sure it's accurate. If you are really having trouble with lag, you can use the TPS bypass and set it to whatever the macro FPS is, and that should help decrease lag. And there we go, we have beaten Abyss of Darkness. So that is the general basics of how to bot levels. Before I go on to the advanced section, please do keep in mind that MegaHack Replay is still in beta and it still is not 100% accurate. You will sometimes get breaks on certain levels, especially with a lot of moving objects and stuff. So the next level we are going to bot is Minus Theory. Minus Theory is currently the number 7 level on the impossible levels list, which might seem intimidating at first, but trust me, it is not the hardest thing in the world to bot once you get the hang of it. So you should check the impossible levels list itself to see what FPS this requires. Minus Theory requires 1200 FPS, so I'm going to set that in my TPS bypass in order to reduce lag. I'm going to put on show hitboxes and show layout. I'm going to click record and I will enter the level. I chose Minus Theory for this tutorial specifically because it has a lot of hard parts and weird quirks in it that a lot of impossible levels have, so it will be useful when botting other impossible levels. So I'm going to set my speed hack quite slow and enter practice mode. As you can see here, this looks impossible because of a blue orb. However, I can click this green orb right before. Because this is a layered orb, I can use frame advance here, click like this and then click again, and then I'll make it up here. This blue orb here is also multi-activate, so you can click it twice like that and go through there. All of these timings are quite hard, so if you can't do it immediately, use frame advance in order to make it easier. Go here, go to, and then there we go. This is also multi-activate, so you can click it twice here. Now with this orb spam, you want to make sure you minimize clicks per second as much as possible. So try to get like as close to the spikes as possible, like this. If you need to, you can use frame advance like I am. Do keep in mind that every time I'm respawning, I am clicking the reset level keybind, so make sure to set one for that. Once again, you do not have to worry too much about setting checkpoints in the wrong place because MegaHack Replay does have a very good practice fix. However, there could be problems, so just like make sure to set checkpoints a bit carefully. The key to botting impossible levels like these is patience. All you really need is to go very slowly and you'll be able to do basically any timing. Here there are multiple trigger orbs, so I have to click it twice in order to pass that. Here this is multi-activate orb, so I just do that. Right, now we have our first 2-player part. 2-player parts are much harder to bot, so I'm going to use a much slower speed hack. Now, it's very helpful to have icons with different colors so you know which player is which. So mouse is currently the player which does not have any pastel on, and the player which is spacebar is the one which has like colorful pastel on. So I'm going to do this and then click with the spacebar there. The other player's getting too close, so I click again and again here. And now they're getting close to the spike, so I click and click. I can click with both here because they're close to each other. Luckily they're aligned, so I can click with both on the same frame here. I'm using frame advance in order to click with both on the exact same frame. Now we have our first dual wave. Now's the time to introduce a very handy feature, which is player 2/player 2 input mirror. This basically makes it so you control both players with your same input. So I can use my mouse here, and I can control both at once. Now for an even better hack, which is show trajectory, I set it to 20% in performance mode so it doesn't use too much lag. Now you can see here, I can see if when I click and release, if I'm going to die or not. So I can easily do this. And this is controlling both players at once, so both players will go through and do the click pattern when I replay the macro. And it's quite easy once you get the hang of it. You just use some frame advance and make sure show trajectory is on so you can see when to click and release. Now, one thing to mention is that show trajectory is not 100% accurate, especially when you have performance mode on. So it might show you that you can make a timing or click or release. When you actually try to do it, it won't. So that's just a symptom of how it works, and unfortunately, you'll just need to try like other timings if it does that. Here I can see when I'll make it through. This is why show trajectory is very handy. Now it's important to mention another thing. You see this trigger orb right here? Normally you would not be able to click it, even though you need to. However, if you use frame advance, click and release on the same frame and then go, it will click the trigger orb but will not move the wave. This happens in quite a few game modes, so it's very helpful if you need to click trigger orbs or anything else. This is also very helpful if you have a UFO with a black orb, because you can click the black orb and jump at the same frame, which normally would not be possible. Now I'm done with the 2-player part, so I can turn off player 1/player 2 input mirror. I'm going to increase the speed hack to 0.3 as well, and turn off show trajectory as I don't need it anymore. Couple hard timings, so I'm going to use frame advance to help me here. Turning on show layout is also very helpful, because normally this gameplay is borderline invisible, so having show layout is a blessing. And also making your own layout can cause macros to break on the actual level, so using show layout most of the time is a good idea. Here this looks impossible, however, it is because you are touching the platform and the ball loses its momentum. So you have to click on the latest frame possible, and there you go, you made it through the gap. Alright, so here's another very hard thing to bot, which is dual ship. I'm going to set my speed hack very slow again. And now you basically want to keep in mind how you control each player. So the pastel icon I control with mouse, and the non-pastel one I control with spacebar. You can place checkpoints while holding as well, which is very handy. I have to go very slowly here in order to make sure I make the transition correctly. Luckily, due to being able to place checkpoints while holding, it makes this ship much easier, as you can time some of the releases easier. I have these two ships synced right now, so I'm clicking mouse and spacebar at the same time in order to make it easier for myself. Although if it does get a little unsynced, click one player slightly before the other in order to align them again. Alright, so here we have another 2-player wave part. So I'm going to turn on P1/P2 input mirror and meta and show trajectory. Now I want to show how the meta status can help with botting. So you can see on the left it shows gravity normal, which shows me which gravity both of my players are. Now as I approach this yellow portal, you can see it changes to flipped, which means I have touched the portal. Normally you would not be able to see that clearly, but now you can. So I just hold now and I make it through. So here I just do the same thing, go until it's normal, then frame advance, and then go the same thing, flipped, so release. It's very helpful for knowing what your gravity is, because then you know when to click and release. Alright, so we have now the solo part, so I can turn off show trajectory, increase the speed hack, and turn off P1/P2 input mirror. Another thing to note is that meta also shows you when you are alive or dead, which is very helpful if you can't really see visually. Now this part seems a bit confusing because the green orb shoots you down. However, what you actually want to do here is avoid it and just hold up there so you can make the gap. And when botting paths like this straight fly, you want to do like not too many clicks, as that will make it less human. So for this miniship, you basically just do the same thing as the previous. You just try to get them aligned and then click the mouse and spacebar at the same time. Alright, so here we have another pretty hard ship part. You can use checkpoints while holding if you wanted to in order to make timings much easier. I have to double click this orb. I'll use frame advance, do this, and then I make it through. Alright, so here, because the waves aren't exactly aligned, I'm going to use frame advance in order to make this gap easier. I use spacebar, hold 1, 2, 3. And now they're mostly aligned, so now I click with the mouse. And now, because they're aligned, I can use P1/P2 input mirror again in order to make this much easier. One good thing I forgot to mention about the TPS bypass, basically TaskBot's physics bypass works a bit differently. You can't really click in the physics frames, however with this specific TPS bypass, you actually can click in between the frames, so you don't have to worry about using frame advance all the time. So here, we have a 2-player cube, and I need to click these trigger orbs and then to make sure the path is clear. Controlling both at the same time can get a bit difficult at first, however, it is not too hard. Here, I click with spacebar, click that, and there we go. You just have to get used to botting 2 separate players after a while, but trust me, it gets much easier the more you do it. Alright, so here, these specific timings for the 2 cubes are a bit weird. So you can jump a bit after you fall off the platform, and that allows you to make this jump. That is helpful for not to know sometimes, because some specific platforms allow you to do that and some don't. So now that we're at this 2-player thing, we go here, turn on show trajectory, Now this is much harder because the two players are going separate paths, but if you just slow it down and use frame advance, you should be able to do it not too hard. So here I see if I click with the bottom one, I go through, so I'm going to click with spacebar, and the same if I release on the top one, so I'm going to release on my mouse, and I'll go through on both. So I'll go here, right onto our normal, and then go there, and then go here. I check my meta until I am flipped to normal gravity, and then there we go. Go here, went to flipped gravity, there we go. Click here, I go on the bottom, I see that I need to click there as well, so click spacebar. Now I go here, I look at the top, and I release right there. You just want to alternate between looking at the top and bottom, basically every single click and release, and then you will be able to do it, and it's not too hard. So I just click this blue orb and hold. I click on the top and release on bottom, right there. And the more you do this, the more you'll get the hang of it. It was very hard for me the first time I did it when I was botting Minus Club, but now it's not that hard for me at all. Show trajectory helps a ton with this because you do not need to know when to time the specific timings. It shows you when you can do it. I'm quickly switching between speed hack and frame advance in order to speed up a process, but you do not need to do this. This is just something I do in order to make things a little bit faster. Don't be afraid to use more or less frame advance, because it's always good to take things slow, as these levels require a lot of patience to bot. Alright, so we've finally passed the dual wave, and now we're at this ball. We can turn off show trajectory here. So we need to make it through this maze, however we cannot click here. So we need to click before that trigger orb, and now click both of these at the same time as we fall off in order to make the gap. Sometimes it will be a bit buggy, and if you place a checkpoint in midair, you will die midair. Just click right before the edge and place a checkpoint at when you land. This is another dual wave, and you will need to go these separate paths in order to make sure you don't die at the end due to it knowing whether you went separate paths or not. Alright, so now exiting the wave, I want to make sure I align both of these again. I need to make sure I can make the shift gap by releasing correctly. You can also do this where they're both falling and going up at the same time, so you can click and release at the same time with both of them. Alright, so normally if you hold up this, you can't quite make the gap, so you have to double click each of these very fast in order to get through there. And you'll have to use frame advance sometimes because they are really fast double clicks. I just realized there's a portal here, so I want to click here, release here, and I want to align them both and get them like that. And once I do that and go here, I can use the mirror hack again, and now I can click with both at the same time. So these waves here are opposite gravity of each other, so I can't quite use mirror yet, but here there's a blue orb here, so I can click with the opposite gravity, and now go here, and now I can use mirror. And you can't respawn on some parts of the slopes or else you instantly die due to your bug, so you just have to avoid that. Here we have another dual cube, so I can click here and click there with the other one. Now I can align them both like this. Alright, so here's another interesting quirk about the ball. Here it looks like it's impossible because you fall down not fast enough. But if you click again here, you actually change gravity onto the floor. So now you can click again and you can do all this stuff. So now we're near the end of the level, and now it's just a couple of decently hard timings and then we're done. There we go. So now that we are done, we do minus theory, I guess 2 because we've already done it. We can set our FPS to 60 to reduce lag, but our TPS is still 1200, so it's fine. Now we replay for macro to check that it works. So if all went well, it should work. However, there is a chance of it breaking because it's not 100% accurate, of course. But in this case, I do not think I do anything wrong, so it should work. You can see the levels slow down a lot here due to lag. Alright, nice. Macro worked perfectly. That's great. So, that is how you bot some very hard levels. However, I am not done quite going over the hard parts of levels yet. So the next level I'm going to use for my example is the Devil. This is the unnerfed version, and I'm going to try botting on 60 FPS. Unfortunately, currently there is a bug with Mega Hack where it can't really bot the Devil yet. However, I can use it to explain a very important concept. The concept here to take in mind of is misalignment. So this is the first case of misalignment. If I jump here, this first blue orb is completely impossible. Like, no matter what frame I click it on, I cannot get through the gap. And that would seem like the level is impossible on 60 FPS. However, I can click here when I land, wait 1 frame, and then click again. And now, this blue orb is possible, and the rest of the blue orbs are. That is one example of misalignment, and I'm going to go over some more because this level has a lot of it. There's something very important to keep in mind here. There are 2 types of misalignment. The first one is X position misalignment, and that occurs when you hit speed portals in a different way, either when they're rotated or from entering from the top or bottom. Right here, we have a rotated speed portal, so whatever way I hit it will affect me for the entire rest of the level. The other misalignment is Y-pos misalignment, which is basically caused by everything. It can be caused by touching the ground or D blocks in Wave. It can be caused by many things basically, and I will go over them as well. So here, I want to try some different alignments, and the first one I'm going to try is coming up through here to hit the speed portal like that. That will give me a specific Xpos alignment, and I will see if it works in the future. Now first, this UFO gap seems impossible. However, I can double click here in order to make it. This click here also seems impossible at first, right here. However, I can also double click and make it much easier for myself. So I can go there and make the gap. So here you can either jump with the cube right there, but I don't make it, so I'm going to fall off the platform and click a bit later and then click this blue orb. Now, this is why it is very important to have the correct Xpos misalignment, because here, if I click right here and enter this, if I just do all this and blah blah blah, the rest of this is impossible. Like, this is not possible. You can see that no matter what I do, I can't make it through this gap. So I have to try hitting this mini portal right here differently in order to get different Y-pos misalignment to see if I can make it. So here I can make that and that one, however I die here. So now I have to try hitting it on a different frame, right there. So I can try this one, I still die, going here. If I try this one, I'll make it through there, I'll make it through there. Well, I die here. And now if you test all possible portal transitions and you die, you have to go back to this one and you have to hold while entering this wave portal, because that also sets you on a different Xpos missile. From here, you make that, I can't make that. So now we release 1 frame later, and now that's a problem, so release 1 frame later here, make that gap, we die here, and we don't make that gap. So now we need to go back here, and the last thing we can try is jumping off here 1 frame later. So we originally jumped from this frame, but now we'll jump from this frame. So this will also put us on a different Xpos alignment. So now we can try entering a mini portal in different ways. So here, that dies there, and the next frame won't work. And now this does seem to be working. So we can make it through, and we barely managed to pass the wave. So that, we were lucky in this case to have the correct X and Y pos misalignment in order to make it through that wave. That is one example of how bad misalignment can get, although it can get worse in much harder impossible levels. For example, in Cyclopic, the current #1 impossible level, there is a speed portal at 17% which is rotated. You need to hit that on an exact frame in order to have the right alignment for 83% jumps. So you have to bot all the way to 83%. And if you die there, you have to go all the way back to 17 and rebot everything all over again until you get the right alignment. That's an example of how bad misalignment can get. You have to very specifically do a shift click pattern here in order to make it through the gap. Alright, so there we have the correct ship alignment and we can make it through that gap. So for this specific ball timing, you sometimes need to go back to the previous wave portal and click and hit the speed portal just right in order to make this click possible. So for the past couple of tries, I haven't hit it correctly, so I need to keep going back here and try to do it all over again. Alright, so this time I finally had the right alignment, so now I can do this. Alright, so this specific section, this ship here, the way you do this ship will determine whether you can pass the jump at 90 or not. So I'll just do it like this, and now we do a double jump here. A double jump basically means you click and keep holding, so you can jump even higher than normal. So there I can't do that, so I need to go back here, there, and I make the jump like that. and I'll just do the wave like this, like that, and there we go. So that is how you do the devil on 60. It is basically an explanation of what misalignment is and how to deal with it. Before we move on to showcases, I want to talk about 3 more things. The first one is merging. If you look at the macros tab, you will see an option called merge with current, and this allows you to merge 2 different macros with different inputs together. So if I click record here, and I'm in a dual wave, I'll do some clicks here, just spam, blah 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 blah. I'll name this test 1. Now, new macro, record again, and this time I use the spacebar, do some clicks here, blah 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 blah. I'll name it test 2. I'm going to exit the level. I load test 1. I click merge with current. Now I go over here. I go to test 2 right here and open it. And now if I go back and I click replay, you will see that the 2 macros are merged together and each of the players are going. So this allows you to do things like duels, but you can bot each player separately. And this is very helpful for things like extremely hard duels. The second thing I want to talk about is how to edit macros in order to fix them. Let's say I have this macro right here, so if I replay this, you'll see that I clicked just 1 frame too late right here. Now normally you would have to go back all the way and fix it. However, we have a way of fixing it ourselves. So if we go to advanced options and export JSON, we will see here that we can go to downloads and choose to save as whatever. So I'll just save as tutorial. We can look inside the file itself and see these inputs. The specific click that we died on was on the frame 44, so we can go here, edit it to be 43, and now save this. Now if we go back into the game, we can click new macro, import JSON, choose the file we just edited, and now if we replay it, we'll see that it's all fixed. You can use this for basically any level in order to manually fix things, however it's often simpler to just redo it from the part that you died at. The last thing to talk about is how to convert MHR macros to different file types and vice versa. As you can see here from this site, which will be in the description, we have different file types including MHR JSON. So if we click this, we can import our tutorial file, convert it to plain text, and now if we want to convert it to taskbot, we have to do -1 offset frames, and now we click taskbot here and convert, and now we have a converted macro. Now if I wanted to do taskbot to MHR, I first have to do taskbot to plain text. I choose blooming lights for example, convert, and now I offset frames by 1, click that. Now I convert that to mhr.json, and this macro will work in MHR. This is basically how you convert macros from taskbot to MHR and other macro types as well. Before we start rendering any videos, we first need to download FFmpeg. The way we do that is we go to Absolute's GitHub page, his organization, go to FFmpeg build, we go to build here in the releases, and we click on ffmpeg.exe. This will download the file for us. Once we do that, we open File Explorer, go to FFmpeg, and we put it in our geometry dash folder. I already have FFmpeg, but I will replace it there. So now that we have our macro, we want to learn how to record our showcase in perfect quality. Before we do that though, you have to go to the description and download this specific resource pack. This one has specific glow fixes in order to make sure that they aren't buggy and low quality. So we copy that, we go to the geometry dash folder, we go to resources, and now we paste it in here and we replace the file in the destination. So before we get to recording, we want to change some settings in order to make sure we have a perfect quality showcase. First off, you want to go to Auto Music Sync here and turn that on. You want to go down to here and turn Trail Bug Fix and Wave Trail Bugs Fix on, and that should be good there. Now we go to our capture tab, we click record from source to turn that off. We go here and we turn on 4K. We change our megabits per second to 68, and you can use either 60 or if you're doing half speed showcases as well, use 120 FPS. Now go to advanced options, choose quality, log output if you want to. Now for the codec, you can use either H.264 NVENC if you have an NVIDIA card, or H.264 AMF if you have a Radeon card. Change the pixel format to RGB0, and in the extra args section, you want to paste in these. These will be in the description, and they are to help with making sure color is set correctly in the showcase. Now that we've done that, we can replay our macro and enter the level. This is Grandpa Demon. Now, before we get recording, we want to turn off everything right here, except show percentage, and make sure that it's on progress bar, so it's like this. Now we can start recording and just retry a couple times, and it will start rendering. It will take a little while to render due to the extremely high quality, whether you just need to wait for it to finish and the end result will be perfect. Now that MegaHack has finished recording, we need to exit the level and stop recording. We need to wait until it's finished rendering the capture and then we can start editing. If you do not wait until it is finished rendering, the video will be upside down and it will have no audio. Alright, now we have a pop-up saying rendering finished, so now we can go edit it. Now that we are in Premiere Pro or whatever video editing program you're using, just name the file whatever the name of the level was, so Grandpa Demon, and click OK. Now you can import your capture that you just made. Just drag it into here. You want to line it up so it starts on the exact frame that the level starts. So we just do this, click left a little bit, and there we go. Now we right click on the edge here to add apply default transitions, and we're same with the end over here, apply default transitions, and we'll drag it forward a little bit to the end of the level, and we have completed our showcase. Now we can go to File, Export Media. We can scroll down here, render maximum depth, use hardware encoding if you can. We will go down here, change our bitrate to 68 megabits per second, as that is what we use. Make sure to click use maximum render quality as well, as that will make it more high quality. And when you've done all that, just click export and you will be ready to upload.